Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I'm Star Smart. Let's begin. Who really governs Ambazonia's institutions? Is it the communities, the elders, and the custodians of culture, or the forces in Yaoundé that impose authority from afar? When universities are pressured to bend to external demands and traditional chieftaincies are overridden by administrative fiat, what becomes of Ambazonian heritage and the right to self-determination? And how long can Ambazonian schools, villages, and sacred structure endure these incursions before local agency is completely eclipsed? What happens when leaders who are meant to guide the peoples of Ambazonia are absent, distant, or beholden to powers that do not share Ambazonia history, their customs, or their struggles? When education, tradition, and governance are threatened, can a people remain truly free? And in a land whose very identity has been fought for over decades, who will stand firm to protect it? But tonight, as we bring you the latest developments, these questions remain urgent, and the answers may as well determine the course of Ambazonia's institutions, culture, and its future. Do stay with us as we bring you the prime headlines. Well, these are the prime headlines on Undaunted tonight. We see road development brings hope. In Ambazonia, we see the University of Buea pushes back against Yaoundé-Based ICT University over PhD dispute. We see also the traditional authority contested Etome Chieftaincy dispute rekindles debate over external interference in Ambazonia. And still on the headlines, we have in Ambazonia, Bangolan Chieftaincy dispute rekindles debate over imposed funds in Ambazonia. Still in Ambazonia, we also see that the Anicet, still in the Cameroon, I beg your pardon, we see Anicet Ekane's tragic end in detention has raised questions about political repression in the Cameroons. And on the African scene, we see Museveni has blocked church mass for Mbeseha as tensions over opposition crackdown deepen in Uganda. And on the rest of the global scene, we see that Ukraine's 4-year mark of war underscores enduring struggle and global stakes. The Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea, Professor Horace Manga, has indicated that the institution may reconsider its agreement with the ICT University following what he describes as an attempt to expand the partnership beyond its original scope. According to the VC, the collaboration was strictly limited to BSc and the MSc and the MBA programs. However, ICT University has reportedly insisted on the issuance of PhD degree certificates, a move Professor Manga says was never agreed upon. He stressed that the University of Buea would not be blackmailed, intimidated, or bullied into altering the terms of the arrangement. He further clarified that ICT University graduates who have not received University of Buea certificates are affected because the required payments for the collection of those certificates have not been made. The delay, he noted, is therefore financial and administrative, not an act of refusal on the University of Buea's part. Now, framed within Ambazonian rhetoric, we say the issue resonates beyond a contractual disagreement. The University of Buea, located in Buea, the historic capital of southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, is widely regarded as a cornerstone of the Anglo-Saxon educational tradition in the territory. As such, any perceived overreach from institutions operating out of Yaoundé is often viewed through the lens of long-standing tensions between southern Cameroons and the central administration. The unfolding dispute raises key questions about academic autonomy, institutional integrity, and respect for agreed frameworks. At a time when education remains both a symbol of resilience and a battleground for legitimacy in Ambazonia, the University of Buea's firm stance signals its determination to guard its mandate and its identity against what it considers undue pressure. Well, we have with us in the studio our esteemed barrister, Tim Mbeseha. Good evening, barrister, and welcome to Undaunted.
Good evening, thank you.
All right, there is really not much to see there, but then looking from a legal perspective, maybe there's some more insight to what looks like a surface level disagreement between directions from Yaoundé down to the University of Buea. I would like to ask, do you see any more of the typical agenda of La République, which is to infiltrate into Ambazonia typical structures and culture? Do you see any of that strategy in this scenario, Barrister Mbeseha?
Well, if what is going on in Buea University is true, it touches on the very core of the Ambassador. For those who don't know, the creation of the University of Buea, which was specified to be an Anglo-Saxon university, was too a long time in coming. People sacrificed their lives for that. We wanted to institute an academic institution of higher learning with the standards that are Anglo-Saxon based. And so they successfully had that thing created in the name of Anglo-Saxon University. At the time it was created, the minister had very limited role to play there. The political leader in terms of academia was the pro-chancellor, who was in principle supposed to be an Ambazonian. And so if this university is Anglo-Saxon, does the Ministry of Higher Education have the power to impose on them any other program for them, worst of all, to certify students to become doctorate degree holders? The holding of a doctorate degree anywhere in the university around the world is based on the ability of the campus or the university issuing that to supervise and make sure that it meets with the standards. If the ICT University signed an agreement with the University of Buea, as I already said, it was for the master's degree program. Because in Cameroon, that being a private university, they are not supposed to give university a degree by themselves. Surely for the simple reason that they might not have the qualified staff. Otherwise, nobody will create a university, and they have created many around the corner of the village, of any house, and then issue your own degree that you want. But for purpose of control, they subjected them to be under state-owned universities. The presumption or the assumption was that the state-owned universities will have the capacity to oversee what the private universities are doing. If Buea University refuses to oversee what is coming out of the ICT University for doctoral courses, they are perfectly right in their own. And so at the end of the day, the question you must ask is, if what they are on the people are doing, the government is doing, who shall issue that doctoral degree to whoever graduates from the ICT University? Is it the Minister of Higher Education or the University of Buea, which is certified academic institution? The minister is a political institution. He has no academic qualifications to issue degrees. The university is technical in that you must be qualified to have something. You must be qualified to teach there. Anybody can be made a minister, even a farmer. In Cameroon, anybody can become anything. And so the University of Buea is right in their context to say, no, we are not doing it, and Yaoundé will not impose this on us. Because if Yaoundé must impose on them, Yaoundé must also bring them the professors that are worth supervising doctoral degrees. It's not to teach in university. You teach in university. It's not any very university professor who supervises a doctorate. No, there are different levels of university degree professors. Some base their supervision only on first degrees, others on second degree, that is masters, and the superior ones deal with the PhD because that's the terminal degree. You don't go beyond. And so again, this is it touches the very core of what we're fighting for. Remember, 2016 was meddling with education. The consortium, the teachers, the lawyers, and the civil community were arguing about education. They started to send French teachers to teach English teachers, to teach English children. Which English children will write examination in English. Not just in English, they will write the GCE, which is a single subject exam. The Francophone children, they have never written a single subject exam. And so it touches at the core of what we have been fighting for. In fact, what was at the beginning of this struggle, education to be preserved for what it is. And so I think the University of Buea, if they are standing up to that right, we say kudos to them. The ICT University, if they must give the doctoral degrees, they must prove that they have the quality to do it. They have the staff. Not everybody who goes there and bring his wife, his sister, his daughter, and put there and then issue a doctoral degree. Talk more of even an MA. And we've seen this, and we've said this many times. Universities in Cameroon are created upon of universities. I said it the other day. They create, for example, in Cameroon, they have about 10 state universities, if not more, about 11. And each of those state universities is a school of. And you ask yourself, where are the practicing institutes? Where do they train? Where are these students in doctors? Where do they practice? You go to have no teaching hospital. You go to Bamenda, there's no university teaching hospital. Where do they go to, these poor boys and girls who are their way to the school? They go down, whatever thing they call it, down the quartier, and then they practice to become doctors. What type of doctors do you expect to get out of these gentlemen and these young ladies? They are very brilliant, but is it their fault? To become a teacher, a medical doctor, you should have the facility to train, to be able, if you start by treating animals, treating objects, to treating human beings. Now they have not given them this opportunity. Every 30 or 40 from Buea, 50 from the medical doctor. To go out, they are in fact killers. Not because of their own fault, but because they were not given training. And they're thrown out to be doctors. I've said here, even those guys, those children who go there, given the opportunity, the rightful opportunity, they will rise up to the highest level of medical training. I've seen children who left Cameroon from those medical schools and came to the United States. And they became some of the best in specialized hospitals over here. They got here, they went to school, the appropriate school, they trained to become surgeons, they trained to become pediatricians, they trained to become whatever thing you call in medicine. But without all these facilities, Cameroon is deceiving the people and they are wasting people's money. And again, I'd insist, what sense does it make, for example, just by way of example, what sense does it make to create a medical school in Buea, create one in Bamenda, The one where takes 80 students, the one Bamida takes 80 students, and then they disperse income. We now have been working one big medical school with all the lab that you need, with a good teaching hospital. And I meet 100 children there than to everyone has one with 80 students, 40, 20 students, and so on and so forth. These are scammers. They will go out the idea that these PhD holders, let us go to the IT thing. And then those so-called holders, the capacity of universities, they're zero. Of Africa universities, all the Cameroon universities together, which are just among the first 100 universities in Africa. None. And of course, they produce PhD holders. Where did they do the research? Dans the Cartier? Where are the results? Where are the publications? Nowhere. And of course, you find that once in a while, I mean, it becomes so long. You find university professors in Cameroon going on strike, looking for what? Looking for research allowance. Where's the research you have done? You have seen no research. But they are paid allowances for that. That's academic dishonesty. That's bribery. Back to the point, the University of Buea is on point. They should not accept to do what they're not capable of doing. Because at the end of the day, it is their credibility which is at stake. They are the ones who will issue the PhD degrees to those guys, not the minister. They should stand their grounds. They're very much on point. Over to you.
Thank you, Mbeseha. Truly, it is their credibility that is at stake. And talking about credibility being at stake, it is not just the academic institutions. We see traditional institutions like fondoms and their funds. We see fresh tensions emerging in Etome village in the west coast of Fako, where residents have petitioned the colonial SDO for Fako, challenging the legitimacy of Ndumbe Andreas Essenje as third-class chief. In a letter dated 22nd February and seen by local media, the villagers argue that Essenje's designation on the 6th of February 2012 was carried out illegally, and they are demanding a formal investigation into the circumstances surrounding his installation. Now, within the framework of Ambazonian rhetoric, the dispute extends beyond local chieftaincy matters. It touches on a long-standing grievance that the colonial administrative system of French Cameroon has steadily inserted itself into traditional structures in southern Cameroon, reshaping or imposing leadership in ways that undermine indigenous legitimacy. Now, under the inherited centralized administrative model, traditional rulers are often designated or recognized through state structures such as the senior divisional officers rather than solely through customary process, which shouldn't be the case. But then critics have argued that this system only enables political influence over grassroots institutions, effectively aligning traditional authorities with state interests rather than community consensus. For many in Fako and across Ambazonia, traditional chieftaincies are not merely ceremonial roles, but they are custodians of land, culture, and communal identity. Allegations that a chief was imposed or irregularly designated revive deeper anxieties about the erosion of self-determination and the gradual absorption of local governance systems into the orbit of Yaoundé's control. The villagers' demand for an investigation, therefore, carries symbolic weight. It reflects a call not only for procedural clarity, but for respect of customary law and the restoration of community agency in determining its own leadership in a territory where institutional autonomy remains a sensitive and contested issue. We see that even a chieftaincy dispute becomes a microcosm of the broader struggle over authority, over identity, and over control. And while this dispute of that fun goes on in Bangolan, there is another chieftaincy dispute where Bangolan, which is located in Buea County in the southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, Bangolan is once again at the center of a traditional governance dispute. And as the contested fund has announced plans to return to his fundum after nearly a decade away Fon Chafa Isaac, who left the village in February 2016 and has since largely operated from Yaoundé, where he reportedly established an annex palace, said he would soon visit Bangolan, a community currently facing cultural and traditional tensions. His continued recognition and protection by the administration of La République du Cameroon, despite reported dethronement by the sacred Ngumba Regulatory Society, has intensified debate. Within Ambazonian rhetoric, Buea County is not merely an administrative unit, but a historic and cultural space governed by deeply rooted customary systems. The installation of or protection of funds by the central administration is widely viewed as an infringement on traditional processes that are the exclusive responsibility of kingmakers and designated elders within each fundum. Traditionally, enthronement is sacred, guided by lineage, ancestral customs, and the authority of secret societies like the Ngumba. When external state authorities intervene, critics argue it disrupts this spiritual and communal order, effectively subordinating indigenous governance to colonial administrative control. The Bangolan case is therefore seen not just as a local leadership disagreement, but as part of a broader pattern in which Amazonian traditional institutions are perceived to be diluted or even overridden. For many, a Fon ruling largely from Yaoundé while claiming authority over a fundum in Buea County symbolizes detachment, leadership in absentia, shielded by state structures rather than rooted in community consensus. And at its core, the controversy revives a deeper question central to Ambazonian discourse. Who has the legitimate right to define and regulate traditional authority? The people and their ancestral institutions, or an external administrative regime? Bryce and Mbeseha has so many more questions to answer here, but we'll leave you with this one.
Yes, so many more questions indeed. You see, chieftaincy or fondship, whatever thing you call it, derives from the colonial invention. When the colonial master arrived, Africa, and in particular Ambazonia, they found the chiefs. If you do the history of Cameroon, you hear that the one man came and they went to Douala and they signed agreements with the local Douala chiefs. When Africa arrived around Victoria in 1858, he signed the agreement with the local chiefs. He met them there. So the colonial master did not create chiefs. The colonial master met chiefs there and recognized that institution where they are called funds. Funds are the native way. Chief is English. In my own place, they call for. So chief is an English word. They designed that traditional authority that presides over a people in this community. And so this type of leadership is supposed to come from somewhere else other than the people themselves. They have different rules that govern it. And so somebody will come to say, to bring it there, is wasting his time. We have missed the point. If you saw what you showed there in the West Coast, the old women are standing there and protesting. What are they doing? They are writing pieces of papers. They are protesting to who? They are protesting to a certain guy. They call him the DO, the divisional officer, or the SDO, the senior divisional officer. Are these people, DOs or senior divisional officers, are they natives of that community? They are not. They could be Hausa people. They could be people, and those who had them, they could be white men, they could be Frenchmen. What have they got to do with the tradition? The colonial master met the traditional rulers there. He signed an agreement if that was necessary. Or if he fought, like the Banso, the Ballet, they fought against the colonial and the natives who were there. Because they were an institution, they could raise an army and fight them. And so coming in to interfere on who is the chief or who is the fon is absolutely going too far. They started doing this in 1977 when they signed the first, what the so-called chieftaincy decree. They call it law, but it was a decree. That is a decree that sought to put chiefs and fons into first, second, and third degree. What you see in West Coast, they're fighting over a third degree. That's a chef de quartier. Quarter head. And then the DO has to come and do that. Then they had the second degree by their own standards and the first degree. But these things were not both based on government imposition. They were both based on historical contexts and the population of the given area. If people had a culture that recognized certain things and had a certain type of population, you were given first class, and then second class, and after the last class of chiefs is the third class. All this had to do with the people, not the government in Yaoundé. And so, but the government in Yaoundé recognized that people could be chiefs. We're going out to the Bangolan thing. People could be chiefs when they were actively in active service. Therefore, could I maybe a successor as a chief of village in Ekane or Wum, whereas you are somewhere a chief of service in Douala or Yaoundé or Buea. That was allowed. You were the chief. That was not a government concern. They classified that they had to pay those chiefs because they were considered administrative assistants. They assist the DOs in orders, maintaining order, law and order within their community. If you're actively there, sitting in the palace and performing that role, they give you a stipend. If you are performing your official functions as a civil servant somewhere else, in Buea, in Douala, in Yaoundé, or even abroad, they didn't overthrow you. We have seen people who died at home, and their successors were found in the UK, studying, or in the United States, or somewhere in Europe. That did not change anything. He remained the chief. The throne was guarded for him until he came back and did what he needed to do. And so, that is why it is supposed to be. You see, then what is happening now is the total abuse of the system. It's an overstretch of what is supposed to be done. Sit down. And so, again, they don't have to do that. The Bangolan story is pathetic, just like any other chieftaincy district. Why? Because you find these people trying to interfere in things that don't concern them. You find in the graphic culture, let us just take the ones that we know very well. Bali is not so far from Bafut. Bafut is not so far from Mankon. When the father of Mankon dies, does the Bafut chief know how the successor is made? No, he doesn't know. If he comes there during the enthronement, he's coming there as a guest. The Ngomba of that community are the people who know who is the successor. If you choose to partake in the ceremony, you are simply a guest. They don't know, they don't have any influence on who is the chief successor. Every community, call it village or fondom, has its own internal regulations. What you have to do, if you are enthroned, or what should be done to you, to legalize, that is, to customarize you in that function that you are giving. Once they are not doing this, the culture is abused. Back again to the Bangolan thing. I hear the man contesting the throne is in Yaoundé. It's created a rival kingdom there. So be it. The question you should ask himself, here is a graduate of Enam. He's supposed to be a senator. Well, you should ask himself, he became deformed. When his father died and he took over, was the DO there? Was the minister there? They were not there. They didn't assist in enthroning him. And then he writes back, I'm coming back. Well, so be it. You are coming back as what? As a fund or as a visitor? Whose fund or whose chief write to the people that I'm coming back to visit my people? Oh, that's an overstretch. The law of 1977, which was simply a decree, contemplated only recognition, not creation. If the founder of Bali died, if the founder of Fontaine died, like the ones that you know, they didn't come in there, they enthroned the new chief and introduced him to the administration. This is a new man. That's what it is called recognition. They simply recognize you, what you are. And in that way, the order is maintained culturally. Because you are not the fund of the minister. You are not the chief of the president. You are the chief or the fund of the people that you rule over. And so your legitimacy does not come from the presidency. Your legitimacy does not come from the minister. Your legitimacy comes from the people. And therefore, if they don't recognize you, whether you have 10,000 recognitions from the minister is totally culturally, traditionally irrelevant. I'm not from that community called Bangolan. Well, if he believes that is right, let him go there. Let him just go there as a visitor. Let him go there and stay in the palace and see the power of Ngumba. And I don't know whether it is Buea or God Kutunja. I read something, I think it is God Kutunja, where other funds of that area have come out to say, well, we don't support the overthrown of our friend. Well, that is protector of special interest. All the funds of God Kutunja or Buea put together, does any of them have the power to decide who is the fund of the next village, other than the villagers of that place? You don't have the power. All powers are limited in your own village. So you cannot determine who is the fund of Gokutunja, the fund of Bale, or the fund of Bafu, or the fund of Bangolan, unless you are in the Bangolan, man. You're in the Kingmakers Club. If you're not in the Kingmakers Club of a particular village, you cannot claim to recognize or not to recognize the leader of that cultural community. It is not. Put down. Put down. It is not. The money they give you is not what is important. Because even, again, from the perspective of my own place, was created in 1977. What funds as well? In the whole of the BLM, we were supposed to have 17 funds. How many of them were recognized officially? Only 3. But did the 3 who were recognized come to take over other village? No. They kept their recognition. If they decided they end their salary, the other villagers maintain their funds. They didn't say you are no longer a fund. No. Because they remain leaders of the community culturally. And again, that is the reason why we fight. We had chiefs at the time of Foncha. Chiefs were there. What the House of Chiefs? Was there any dispute to this level? No. Chiefs were recognized as from the same grading. With senior one, junior one. But how did they grade? It was not by presidential decree. Chiefs were tax collectors. If, for example, the fund of Bale had about, say, 500 taxpayers under him, he automatically beats you when you have only 100. He's senior to you because he commands a bigger population. Income-wise, he brings in more money. So you cannot contest that. You cannot go back to Foncha and say, Foncha, make me a first-class chief because you have the prime minister is my friend. Well, you have only 5 people there they're collecting taxes from. And so that's, again, one of the reasons why we fight. You see, these traditions have become part of our institutions. They have become part of our daily lives. They have become part of our governance. And if you don't respect them, you destroy the core of the community. Back to the people of West Coast. What we expect that duo to do? The only thing that guy has as a duo is a presidential decree. A presidential decree that has no meaning to the lives of people in that village. Absolutely nothing. The guy comes there, he has transformed himself into a chef d'etat. They cannot go to land disputes. Argue when a man quarrels with his wife or a woman quarrels with her husband because they are chef d'etat. They can bring order, they can catch you, they can lock you. That is not what Southern Cameroon was. That is not what Ambazonia is all about. Ambazonia is about a return to where we came from, where cultural values will be respected where they are. The Bakwema will have his culture respected. He will not impose his view just because he become the senior divisional officer of Nkambe. And Nkambe man will not come to Buea and say, well, this is what they do in Nkambe, you must do this in Buea, or Mamfe, or vice versa. That is what we fight to protect. Because without them, the society ceases to exist. Over to you.
Integrity. Cultural integrity needs to be protected in Ambazonia. It is one of the things Ambazonians fight for as they fight for their right to self-determination. Well, Barrister Mbeseha, away from Ambazonia and looking at French Cameroon with the election that took place last year, we see that it has been nearly 3 months since Anicet Ekane, one of Cameroon's most prominent opposition figures, since he died under mysterious circumstances while in military detention. Arrested in late October, just 2 weeks after the country's highly disputed presidential election, Ekane passed away 5 weeks into the confinement, sparking widespread speculation that his death was an indirect political assassination designed to silence dissent. The circumstances surrounding his arrest, prolonged detention, and eventual death have long been shrouded in opacity. For weeks, his family was denied access to his remains, which were kept under judicial seal at Yaoundé Central Hospital following a government commissioner's decision at the military court. It is only now, after repeated requests from the family's lawyers, that authorities have allowed his body to be released, paving the way for his widow to make funeral arrangements. The autopsy report, which has remained secret, may soon shed light on the cause of his death. Ekane, who was 74, had been a leading figure in an opposition coalition that openly challenged the results of the October election. The coalition accused the state of widespread electoral malpractice and had endorsed Issa Chiroma Bakari as the rightful winner, a claim that led to deadly protests across the country. The official results, however, declared the 92-year-old incumbent Paul Buea the victor, extending his decades-long rule since 1982 by another 7-year term. The death of Anicet Ekane has reignited debates over the use of state security structures to suppress political opposition, with observers pointing to his mysterious detention, the secrecy surrounding his remains, and the prolonged denial of basic rights as indicative of systemic repression. In a country where dissent is often met with heavy-handed measures, his passing underscores the fragility of political freedoms and raises urgent questions about accountability, transparency, and the safety of opposition figures in Cameroon's ongoing political landscape. Barrister Mbeseha, we talked about the death of this very man, Anicet Ekane, the sad passing, and even him being denied medical care while he was in that military detention. And after his death, we saw that he never got to, his remains was never sent to his family only until recently. So looking at the whole thing, more speculations are rising about this, but would like to get your observation on the matter. What does the colonial administration seem to be hiding with this particular case?
Well, I'll answer the question, then I analyze. They seem to try to hide their responsibility for this man's death. But it's not a responsibility you can hide. It is publicly known, publicly declared. In my own words, this is my view. They killed him. There's no doubt about that. Remember, Anicet Ekane was never a candidate in the presidential elections. He was never a candidate. But he played a pivotal role that sought to challenge the status quo. His small party, a very small party, had only one councillor in the whole of Cameroon. And the law provided that only a party with at least one representative can sponsor a candidate. Based on that, sought to and successfully disqualified Kamto. Anicet Ekane, his small party with one councillor, tried to sponsor Kamto as the presidential candidate. That provoked the anger of the Yaoundé regime. Call it the Ministry of the Trade Administration or the presidency. They work in tandem. What did they do without that? They did all what we know, which nobody has ever done in the world. They pirated their own website, claimed, put their own people there in order to disqualify the party, the leadership of the party of Anicet Ekane. They pirated their own website to disqualify Kamto. And they successfully disqualified Kamto. Anicet Ekane, as sick as keep quiet. His sister there. He was an agent for change. He remained a candidate, a person. What did he do? They threw their weight behind Issa Chiroma. And Issa Chiroma won the elections. Again, he has challenged the status quo. Almost the majority of people in Cameroon, I believe, including me, believe that Issa Chiroma won. They chased Issa Chiroma away. Issa Chiroma was still strong enough to run. Anicet Ekane was really a sick man. They plucked him from his house on oxygen, took him away and killed him. Now he is dead. They are embarrassed that he is dead because his death has become an international event. How will he do it? They try to hide it. That's why they say they're trying to hide their own misdeeds in public. Well, he's dead. There's no way he can come back. But he's dead. The whole world knows that they killed him. But of course, they will pretend to go and do an autopsy to find the cause of his death. Of course, they did one. They claim to have done one. What autopsy do you do without the consent of the victim's close family? They refuse Anicet Ekane's family from taking part in the autopsy. You can know what the result is what they wanted to write down. They did an autopsy. They probably went to their room, put something there, and then wrote it down as the cause of death. Which cause of death as of today, since December, since November last year or whatever month he died, it has never been made public. But to make things worse, they kept his corpse. They sought to own the dead man's corpse because they didn't know how to bury him. It was one scandal too many. They have killed most of their opponents in that same manner. But they didn't know how to keep this one. Since it was a presidential election, the whole world was watching. Even their friends, the French, the Americans, wherever the whole world was watching them. So now his man is dead. There's no way they can resurrect him like they have resurrected Paul Buea, to be sitting there pretending to talk. Now they have to look for excuses to give. The family say, okay, you have killed him, let us take his corpse and go and give him a burial that he deserves. They say, no, you will not take it. Is that new to them? No. They are used to killing the opponents and owning the corpse. Who is the corpse of Wazizi? The two Wazizi from Buea. Wazizi disappeared. They claim that Wazizi died. The family of Wazizi doesn't know where he was buried or whatever killed him. Because he was on an FM radio station in Buea. They went and took Martinez Zogo, killed him. They're still keeping his corpse till more than 3 years after that. Why? Because this man was revealing the crimes they were committing, the financial crimes. They killed him, they took his corpse. Till today, they have not buried him. They had gone and killed the bishop, Bala of Bafia, threw him into the ocean, to the river, fabricated their own evidence, and said they were investigating. As of today, nobody has ever found out the result of the investigation. And so it is not new. What are they giving? They are now calling the family of Anicet Ekane to come and take the corpse. Well, they will take the corpse. If these people have the money, I think they should have the money. Give me a second. If people have the money, which I think they have, they should be able to conduct their own autopsy. Because there's no doubt that they killed this man. But what they are insisting, the one said his chapter can be forgotten. Is this a country where people should live in? No. Is this a country where they think that they should belong to the same hemisphere with Ambazonians? No. That will never have happened in Ambazonia. If it happened in Ambazonia, if somebody tried that, there will be a popular uprising. They will go to Buea and pull down that prime minister's lodge and pull him out, if possible, hang him. But since these people are so castrated, they can't do anything more than that. We say no. They can continue to do what they are doing. We're not part of them. We've left them once and forever. Over to you.
I bet that is loud and clear to French Cameroon, that Southern Cameroon has indeed left. Thank you, Barrister Mbeseha, for joining us on tonight's Undaunted. This is where we'll draw it to a close with you. Thank you for your wonderful contributions tonight.
Thank you.
All right, coming up next will be the news around Africa. On the African scene, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has blocked a church mass that was scheduled to honor jailed opposition figure Kizza Besigye, escalating concerns over political freedoms in the country. According to Besigye's wife, Winnie Byanyima, the Archbishop of Kampala cancelled the planned service at Rubaga Cathedral after receiving a call from Museveni, who reportedly described the gathering as political and said it required investigation. Besigye, a longtime rival of Museveni, was once his personal doctor, has been detained for about 15 months on treason charges. He was abducted in Nairobi in November 2024 before resurfacing in a Ugandan military court, a development that drew sharp criticism from human rights groups and opposition leaders, who link his persecution to the recent presidential elections. He has reportedly been denied bail and has reportedly faced health challenges in custody. The cancellation of a prayer mass, even as worshippers had already gathered, had fueled accusations that the state is infringing on religious freedoms and shrinking civic space. Byanyima, who is Besigye's wife, described the move as evidence of how normalized such restrictions have become. The controversy unfolds against the backdrop of Museveni's seventh presidential bid since taking power in 1986, an election marked by an internet blackout and reports of opposition repression. Statements by the army chief, Muhoozi, welcoming the killing and arrest of opposition members have further intensified scrutiny. The episode underscores the fragile balance between security claims and civil liberties in Uganda. And as Besigye's case continues, it raises broader questions about judicial independence, the militarization of politics, and the future of democratic competition in one of East Africa's longest-serving regimes. And over to West Africa, in Ghana, we see it has announced that Kotoka International Airport will revert to its former name, Accra International Airport, in a move that has reopened long-standing debates about history and national identity. The airport was originally renamed in honor of Emmanuel Kwasi Kotoka, a senior army officer involved in the 1966 coup that overthrew Ghana's first president, Kwame Nkrumah. Government officials say restoring the airport earlier's name reflects Ghana's democratic evolution and aligns more closely with the capital's identity. They emphasize that the change is symbolic with no impact on airport operations or aviation safety. Supporters argue that honoring a figure associated with a military takeover sits uneasily with Ghana's constitutional order, especially given the country's hard-won return to multi-party democracy in 1992 after years of instability. Critics, however, contend that the decision risks erasing a complex chapter of Ghana's history and sidelining Kotoka's role, which some view as an intervention against increasingly centralized rule and under Nkrumah. The debate has taken on regional and political undertone and with opposition voices questioning the timing amid economic challenges such as unemployment and rising living costs. But then the controversy has gained renewed attention since President John Mahama's return to office following the 2024 elections. It also revives broader historical discussions about the Cold War context of Nkrumah's removal, and the international dynamics that shaped Ghana's early post-independence politics. While Ghana remains widely regarded as one of West Africa's more stable democracies, the airport renaming debate illustrates how unresolved memories of coups, leadership, and legitimacy continue to shape national conversations. Well, coming up next is news across the rest of the globe. Today, Ukraine commemorated 4 years since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. A conflict that shattered early hopes for a quick resolution and has become Europe's deadliest since World War II. In Kyiv, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and other EU leaders traveled to the capital as a powerful symbol of sustained support, with von der Leyen reaffirming the EU's commitment to stand financially, militarily, and through this harsh winter alongside Ukraine. Despite the solidarity, the war shows no signs of ending soon. The United States-led peace talks stalling and Russia continuing its offensive. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky used the anniversary to highlight Kyiv's resilience, asserting that Moscow has not achieved its goal, even as tens of thousands have died and millions have been displaced. The ongoing conflict has not only reshaped Ukraine's future, but has significant impact and implications for European security, global alliance, and long-term reconstruction needs. Well, away from Ukraine's war, we see in Iran, still with its protests. We see that Iran's government issued its first official response on Tuesday today to renewed university students protest, stressing that while students do have the right to protest, they must respect defined red lines, particularly regarding sacred symbols and the national flag. The comment by government spokeswoman Fatima Mohajerani came after gatherings this semester revived slogans from larger nationwide demonstrations that peaked in January and resulted in a deadly crackdown. The protests, initially driven by economic hardship and political discontent, have seen students at several campuses openly challenge state authority, including incidents involving flags and other symbolic acts. Tehran's cautious acknowledgement of protest rights, coupled with warnings against crossing what it deems intolerable boundaries, reflects the authorities' efforts to manage unrest without further escalating tensions. The developments underline the deep and sometimes volatile undercurrents among Iran's youth and broader society as they grapple with demands for greater freedoms and more government accountability. Well, with that, we've come to the end of tonight's Undaunted. Before we go, let's take a look at our major headlines. On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you Ambazonia's heritage and traditional rights being eroded by colonial French Cameroon's administrative imposition, and more on the African scene. We brought to you more on the Homefront report. We brought to you Anicet Ekane's body being released finally today. On the African scene, we brought to you the report on Museveni restricting church activities against his opposition. And then on the global scene, we saw today that Ukraine marked its 4th year in the war. That is the next closest, the longest since the World War II. And with that, we've come to the end of tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories on behalf of the entire Undaunted newsroom and our guest for tonight, Barrister Mbeseha. We say thank you for tuning in. We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.